This is a never-ending story composed of forever-lasting motion. Stories and motion go hand in hand. A story in motion tends to propel itself through an evolutionary stage of life lessons and personal triumphs. Water is one of the most basic and at the same time most complicated life necessities. Water is always in motion, just like our lives. So I'm going to show you a life story with water. That feeling of isolation, that vast snowy mountain, it was like an island in the middle of nowhere, but in the center of everything else. It was my boundary, my prison. What a mighty fortress it was. My vast prison of isolation, nestled gently on that mountain, boundaries and islands seemed to dissolve around me. But that fortress could have fooled me. I was no longer the center of everything. Nowhere else could I hide. My horizon held bleak and despair. At times, I felt like that lonely shell trampled on in a sea of withering fools. And at other times, I felt wild and free, ready to sink my feet in the sand, letting my imagination soar, and extinguishing the bane of false hopes and empty promises. Wasting my life away, as I sat on the sidelines, I paused to ingest my surroundings. It felt like 1,000 years had passed, but I had better things flowing through my mind. Companions? Psh, who needs them? I had an agenda of my own. I will not settle for less. Live every day to the fullest. Everything happens for a reason. Seriously? I just can't bring myself to play that part. The role of cliché. It stings. Will it hurt? I don't know. Could you feel it? Sometimes. Should it matter? Of course. But who's counting? I suppose they were. I rewound to a familiar place. That place was a necessary evil, a source of fear and happiness simultaneously. I had to compromise my own conceit. Perhaps they were watching. But who were they? While resting by the pond, enjoying my solitude, I noticed a parchment floating by. Intrigued and confused, I opened the note. Are you sure you don't have a heart? Flashlights and explosions went off in my mind. I can't just look inside. But I figured, if there was something in there, inside me, then I'd feel it, wouldn't I? All of those memories, all of these emotions, so little room to spare, came flooding back to me. Just as the seasons change, I too had to change. It took every ounce of courage to realize that maybe I wasn't alone. The weight off my shoulders, the scars of my past, the relief felt like the difference between night and day. You can sort of predict these things, but they never happen the same way twice. My road of despair and their path of destruction, they were intertwining so swiftly. The hardest part of it all was lifting my shield. At the same time, it was like a thorn in my foot. No matter how many times I tried to vanquish it, I just couldn't do it alone. I had to fling open the portals of my heart and accept the notion that life isn't about mere existence, that mere existence is a waste, and that waste is my antithesis. The ones who wrote that note, I thought I was ready for them. They looked at me, and I glanced at them, so prone to infection, so vulnerable and exposed. That wretched mountain I once called my isolation gave a whole new meaning to retrograde. The blurred was now distinct, the confusion was cleared, and for the first time, I could share my heart.